All right, let's go ahead and get started. Well, I was looking for this to come down to 37.50, 37 quarter, which it did, which is why I took this short up here. So I told you I start looking at the market a little bit early, and this thing from the get-go yesterday has been moving higher and higher from the get-go of the Globex session. But as this came up, I'm looking at the offer side. I see weakness, weakness, and I see more strength coming back in at the offer here. Right around the time where the U.S. market typically starts coming into the session. But I also see some strength down at the bid down here, but yet to see any kind of continuation of strength down at the bid. And then this last time up, weakness, weakness. So as it started headed back down, and it didn't look like buyers were really they weren't really going to press their advantage or press their this move higher, is when I got into short. And unfortunately, this news stopped me out. Otherwise, I'd still be my second exit was right down here, right out in front of 37.25. So I would have had another scale here, but it is what it is. We'll get there for the day. So that's what I was looking at this morning. The strength, weakness up at the top, then this mysterious strength back up at the top by buyers that turned into weakness. So we may get back up here today. We'll see. But that short was a good short. The news stopped me out right there. Oh well. This is why when I'm training, I typically don't like to. If I'm running a trading room, I'll trade. But when I'm doing training, I don't typically like to trade because I'm a trader, And when I get into a trade, I'm watching the market, and I'm focusing on the market, and it takes me a lot of energy to focus on what's going on here. And this looks like it's still coming down. So it takes me a long time to focus what's going on, how to manage a trade, where it's likely going to go, and it really distracts me, and it should distracts me from teaching. It's a very, very difficult thing to do both effectively. So I'll leave this up, and I'll leave this account up, but I might throw over to a sim chart as we get started with the trading. All right, a couple things I want to get started with. This is today, of course, is the 13th. So we are going to be looking at data from yesterday, the 12th. Just to kind of get a sense from, again, what happened yesterday, start to give us some context. And this is one of the things I do every morning. First thing I do is I look at the overnight session, and I look at the profile. I look at the shape of the profile. I can see really weak structure down here, a low volume area at 35.25, 36.25, and then again 33.75. So a lot of low volume area kind of put together here. And the high of the day from yesterday's session is here at 36. Just hang on a second. Yeah, right there at 36. So we'll see what happens there. There's a little bit of a low volume area there, 36.25, 35.75. We'll see what happens at this 35 to 36 quarter area. There's still a little bit of strength down at the bid here at 36.50. So we may see this move down a little bit more. We're getting strength back into the offer right here at 37.25. But this is really where, if I were going to take a trade this morning in the pre-market, this is really where I would want to take that trade, because as I look at the profile here, here's the low volume area. There's one here at 35.25. Our high of day yesterday was right here at 36. So 36 is an area that I'd want to pay attention to. And because of this low volume area, and it all happened on one big probe to the upside, I really wouldn't want to see price get too far down beyond that. So my stop would be around 35, because if it gets there, if it gets below yesterday's open, then it may start searching for this higher volume area from yesterday right here at 33.50. And pre-market, I just don't want to mess with that, especially right after news. But this is about the area, this 36.25. I would look to see if we had buyers stepping back into the market. So one of the first things I do in the morning is I'm looking at both of these, especially after that 6:20, 6:30 Central Time. I'm looking to see if these numbers, basically, are these numbers getting bigger? Can I see anything that is substantial? And actually, I don't see anything in the pre-market here that is abnormal. I don't see anything that says, boy, here's where the U.S. Influence may be stepping into the market. If I look back at 334, there was a lot of activity here at the bid, and then it just went away. Just went away. And if you notice, when price came down, this bar has changed because it's developing. But when price initially came flying down here after that stop, it came down pretty quick. If you saw, if you looked, what you saw on the right side was a lot of blue, so a lot of weakness at the offer. And these numbers at the bid aren't that significant. I mean, they're not that big. So what that said to me is, from about right here, 38.25 on down, the buyers just kind of stepped aside. So buyers seem to just say, no, we're good, we're going to wait. And now they're stepping back in at 37.25. So as I look at this pre-market auction, I'm looking at 37.25, which is essentially right here. This is VPOC. And I can see buyers being willing now to take price higher, which tells me that, at least from a buyer standpoint, they believe that 37.25 is a fair price. So this is a valid VPOC for this market, this pre-market. And I'm going to start, I don't want to say setting anchors, but I'm going to start getting my reference points from here on into the open. So we had news, not great retail news, but given given all the wars and the price of oil over the last month and the price of gasoline over the last month, I'm sure that having a zero increase in retail sales compared to an expectation of 0.2% is actually still pretty good relative to the overall economy, because everybody knows gas prices went up, and when gas prices go up, it affects us from a retail sales standpoint across the board. So that's pretty good. But what this market is saying is, I can see fair price in the overnight, and so far in the pre-market at 37.25. By looking at this offer right here and prices moving up, this tells me that buyers so far right now believe that that is fair price. That's a good price for them, right? So one of our basic assumptions and principles of the market is that people get into participants get into positions to make money. So at 37.25, we can see activity coming in. It's VPOC for the overnight in the pre-market here. So that is telling us that buyers believe that's fair price. So I've got that as sentiment. So what that means is, in my mind, as I'm looking at this auction, at 37.25, if I start seeing weakness at the offer, doesn't mean that it can't go down below 37.25, because 37.25 is a fair price. It's a high volume area. We expect rotation. But what I want to continue to see in this auction going forward is I want to continue to see buyers believing that this is fair price. So I'm okay with price coming down. I'm expecting price to come down. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. It doesn't matter if it does. That doesn't change my perspective. What will change my perspective is if price starts coming down, and as we start moving back up, there is not continued strength at the offer. If that happens, and especially at 37.25 up at 37.75, then I am going to say in my mind something is changing. Something is changing to the downside. These buyers are not having the same conviction that they were having. I need to keep that in mind, because maybe the sentiment is changing. And it may just be that all of this activity, if you look back at the auction here, I don't want to make an assumption, but if you look back at the auction here, there was a fair amount of activity here from 34 quarter, 34.75 to bring price higher. So one of the things that you'll notice on this bar, well, let me ask you, what do you notice about this bar? A lot of green, but what else do you notice about that bar? Weak bid. That's exactly right, Ben. Weak bid. So there was this relenting by the sellers. I'm going to give up. There was this relenting by the sellers, and I'm looking for what might be a good stop, like if they got stopped and then just got taken out. And I really, right here, right there. Remember we talked about this before. Whenever you've got, yeah, well, possibly right here, you can see sellers stepping in. Here, I'm looking for a potential stop, and I don't really see it. So what sellers did is they just said, "Up, we're out. We're out." Very few market orders. A little bit here at 34.50. You can see here at 36. A little bit there of selling, but for the most part, they said, "We're going to step aside." So why would they do that? Why would they do that? Well, they would do that because this is no longer an area that they believe that they can make money. So what are they most likely going to do? They're most likely going to go find a spot where they believe that they can make money, right? So what I look for is, can I see that spot? Can I see a spot where sellers start to believe that they can make money, where they're actively engaging again? I can see some activity here. This was early in the morning. 37.75. A little. This isn't that strong here. Even this move down is not, from a relative number standpoint, this is not that strong. This when you compare the activity over here, 1592, 1995, and I'm not, at the time the bid in the auction was, the bid in the offer was like this, but I'm just looking overall. Is there something I can gain from the auction here that would give me some clue as to how this pre-market auction is beginning to emerge? So that's the first thing I do, is I start looking at the auction. I look at the overnight profile, relative to yesterday's session, and I'm trying to answer the question: Are we in range from yesterday? Are we out of range from yesterday? If we're out of range from yesterday, one of the things I absolutely want to answer is, when did that happen? When did the the change happen from yesterday. And I don't just mean right here. I don't mean right here at midnight as this moved higher. Because my sentiment from yesterday, and this is yesterday's session. Hang on a second, let me bring this over. This is yesterday's session with VPOC at 30 and our close literally just right above VPOC. When I look at the day, we had range extension to the downside. It was relatively, I don't want to call it a neutral day, but it was a relatively balanced day yesterday, even though we had range extension to the downside. So range extension to the downside would suggest that the market participants were exploring prices lower, and they failed to go higher during the RTH session. So what happened, what changed in the overnight context to start moving price higher? And when I look at the auction, that happened from the very start. The very start of the auction yesterday, after the session, the Globex session began, price started moving higher. So if I go back to that, right here, from yesterday's session, started moving up, maintained price above this closing swing low, and then at midnight is when it really took off, right here, at least midnight my time, really took off. So again, what I'm trying to do is really get a sense from, in the overnight, if something has changed. Are we about where we were yesterday? Great. Are we at a different place than we were yesterday? Great. Because here's my perspective is, this was the RTH session, the participants, this was their value area, this was where they thought fair price was, this was their range, this is where they wanted to trade yesterday. So one of two things is going to happen. Either these participants, who are different than these participants, right? Either these participants are going to want to resume trading because this was the fair price for them back down in this area. They're going to want to resume trading back into this area, or they're going to agree with the overnight participants and say, no, value is really higher. Something happened to make us believe that value is really higher, and if value is really higher, then we are going to continue to auction prices higher. And we have some weak structure in the overnight market from this big move up. And so once we got below, say, 36, no more than 35.75, in this area, in this weak structure, if we open up here, I just would not trade. A lot of things can happen right there. I need to let this market prove that it really doesn't want to go higher. The RTH session proved that it doesn't want to go higher than 36 and doesn't agree with that from the overnight session. And if that's the case, we're likely to see price move back down to 30 and possibly even lower on the day. But I need to let that play out. Now over here, we've got relative weakness down here at 36.50, which was this low volume area. 36.25 is a low volume area. 36.50 is one in front of it. So if I were to make a trade here, I would go long. I'm not going to do that right now. I would go long, and my stop would be probably around 35.50. My the best trade is 36.25. I don't want to say it's the best, meaning it's going to work, but my relative risk is a little bit lower. If it starts coming down through this area, it may do a stop run real quick and back up. We got a low volume area right here at 35.25. But in looking at this, I don't want it if it gets back down into this real thin area because it's likely to get a little bit choppy. So I could take this trade. The only thing that I don't like about this trade is the relative strength at the bid at 36.75. So I'm not real excited about taking this long, just simply because I can see pressure by the sellers. I can see some activity at the offer, 36.75. But right now it's kind of lining up as for me, a little bit of a battleground, as I can see both buyers and sellers becoming active down in this area. And right now the developing auction in the volume cluster is neutral as well. That having a neutral developing cluster doesn't give me a lot of confidence one way or the other either. So if I were looking to trade pre-market, I would look at what's below me. I would say there's weak structure. If it comes down through 36, it very well could come all the way down to that 30, 33 level. And right now we're getting a lot of pressure to the bid side. It may be a trade that works, but I have to look at my relative risk, which may be maybe a point from 36.75 down to 35, maybe a point and a quarter, and above me I have VPOC. If buyers do come back, I would expect to move up to 37.25, which is right here. I really can't assume anything beyond VPOC right now, especially with all this pressure to the downside. So the risk in the trade, even though it might work, is greater than, in my mind, it's greater than it's worth. So again, this is what I do in the morning, especially if I'm looking for a trade, is I'm trying to get a sense in the overnight. Did something change in the market? And when did it change? And if it changed, was there news that made that change? And was that significant news? Remember, if you go back to that workflow, and if this was news that changed price, changed the sentiment, one of the first questions is, was price affected? Did price move back to where it started? And the answer is no. So far, it hasn't moved back to where it started. We're not at the open yet. And the course of action is, if price hasn't moved back to where it started, then you've got to reconsider your overnight plan, and you got to start factoring in the effect of news. So again, that's the first thing I do in the overnight, and then I move on to my sheet. I filled in my numbers from yesterday: open, close, VPOC, and here's what I'm doing. I'm doing a quick view of these numbers. Open, much higher on the open. 1909 to 1930.50. If I were just to look at two numbers, I would look at open and close and compare those. The open was 21 points higher. The close was 7 points higher. What does that tell me? It tells me the previous overnight there was considerable movement, momentum to the upside. But overall, remember, I should be able to kind of get a sense for the structure of the day and be able to read the day in these numbers. Those two numbers tell me that the night prior to that, there was significant sentiment to the upside. But the RTH session participants yesterday said, yeah, we're higher, but we're not that much higher. So there wasn't as much enthusiasm during the RTH session yesterday as there was in the overnight. And then when I look at VPOC, the VPOC was only 3 points apart. So when I compare fair price, even though we had a significant move, we had a significant move on Friday. This was Monday. Had a significant move on Friday. Yesterday, the RTH session kind of came back and said, well, maybe there isn't value higher yet. So, one of the things I start doing is saying, okay, if the RTH session is going to start moving higher, they need to start proving that that they believe in higher prices. How do they prove it? We start seeing acceptance higher. So I would want to start seeing acceptance higher than yesterday's VPOC. I'd want to start seeing acceptance up around 33, 34, 35 area today. So again, these numbers start giving me context of the RTH session. Then I go over to my profile analysis, 3050. I'm starting to look to see where I have some confluence or agreement between the short term and long term. I really don't see that. You could say 2450 to 26, so that could be a range. See right here in the long term, 2450 yesterday. High volume area. There was one right down here. Make sure I got that right. Is that 25? Yeah. The other thing is you got to make sure your numbers are right. Let me just verify that. 20, actually that should be 26. 26 here. Yeah, there it is. 26. That's correct. So we had a high volume area around 26, and in the longer term, that was right. I have that number right. In the longer term, we have high VPOC right at 23.75 in this last swing high, swing low, 23.75, 24 level. So this, I'm going to drop this down to about 24. So I have a range between 24 and 26 where there is some consensus. And what that means to me is if I start to see acceptance today down around 24 to 26 area, then that's immediately going to tell me that the RTH session is beginning to accept prices lower. And I would then turn to the intraday volume profile and see if they're in the print to see if there's an opportunity to go short. So I'm going to actually going to move this down. And I'm going to put in here 1924 to 1926 as a high volume area. Now to the upside, remember I said 33, 34, 35. If I start seeing consensus or volume or VPOC this morning, especially after the IB up in this area, this is going to tell me, I want you to see this now. Here's my high volume area at 33, 75, 34 level. If I bring over the whole thing so you can see the, way back here. Here's my if then. If this morning, this 30, 31 level starts holding to the downside, and it just so happens at 31, yeah, 30.50 was the close from yesterday. But if this level starts holding today, and we start getting acceptance up at 33.75 to 35, then as long as the sentiment and the print shows me that buyers are being effective at moving price, I am going to expect a test of this level, 44.50 to 45, this level right there. Because if this becomes an unfair low this morning, this 31.25 level, and we get fair price around 33.75, then my expectation is going to be that this is going to start to move higher. And I can further define that by looking at yesterday's. There's a low volume area right here at 31.75. VPOC is at 30. If price tests lower through this weak area, and if sellers can't get through this 30, and we get a good bounce off of 30, which was yesterday's VPOC, and start moving higher, then I'm gonna be looking for a long, at least back up to yesterday's high, if not higher. So as I start looking at the data, I start building my if-then scenarios. So I go through the overnight, I compare it to yesterday, I look at the print, and I say, what's happening here in the pre-market? We had some news. And then I start looking at my data, and I start formulating in my mind what my levels are and what my trading plan is. Can I tell right now if this market's going to go higher or lower for the day? No, I can't. But I can see some significant selling coming in. Remember what we said before is that we were getting, buyers were showing good strength at VPOC in the overnight, which was at 37.25, in good strength here. And I said, if that changes, I'm okay with it coming down. I'm okay with it rotating down because that's what happens around fair price. But if this starts coming back up and buyers cannot show strength back up at 37.25, then something is changing. The sentiment to the upside is changing, and buyers are not showing that same level of conviction. And that change is significant for me. And that starts to help me look at my scenarios and pick one. I don't know where it's going to open yet, but pick one that is likely to come about. So remember, I have no desire to trade. This weakness, this might be turning over. What I would really like to see now, I have no trade here, but what I'd really like to see is I would really like to see buyers take this back up to 37.25. Remember, I'm painting a story. So I'd like to see 37.25, and I want to see what buyers do at 37.25. Even if right now this market just stayed here and didn't move at all, then at the open, we have high of day from yesterday here at 36. At the open, I need to see price beyond this level with some strength in order for me to consider a long. So our pre-market activity right now, you can see the activity at the bid growing. It's effective at moving price lower. Here's our high for the day. And let me get back to my my trade plan. So again, here are my numbers. To the downside, I've got a low volume area between 31.75. So I had an LVA yesterday right there at 31.75, and my longer term low volume area is right there, right about 31. So I create this range that goes from 31 to 31.75. So this starts to get into my trade plan scenarios. If price opens above 31.75, I want to look at that level from yesterday. There's 31.75 right there. There's that low volume area. If price opens above that, and what's interesting about this 31 level, 31.75, is I can see that this up to 32 was the last swing high. And I don't mean a closing swing high, but in the afternoon, that was, it was a great short off of that low volume area. Moved up, failed, and off of that low volume area yesterday, was 31.50 down to 23.50, so 7 points off of that low volume area. But the sentiment of this market yesterday was a close below this 31.75 level. Barely it came back up, but it did close below that low volume area. So there's enough in this range, 31 to 31.75, that it's going to start to take a pretty prominent role in my if-then scenarios. Now, one of the things, just because of this overnight move, is if price opens up between, we're getting some volume here at 35.50, but if price opens up below, yeah, I'm going to say 36 down to 32.75, I'm not doing anything. I'm going to wait, because there is a probability that this will run down and test at least to the downside of this low volume area, and then possibly back down to this 31 to 31.75. So if price opens up between 36 and 31.75, say 32, I'm laying off. I'm laying off. If we open up above yesterday's high, I may take a long if the print tells me that sellers are not being successful anymore. I may take a long. So if we open up above 36, and I'm not talking about 36.25, right? If we open up at 36.25, I'm not just taking a long at 36. I need to see activity up and down. I need to see the opening swing. If there's a strong finish at 36 down to 35.50 in the RTH session, then maybe I'll take a look at a long and look for price to continue to move up. But if we open up between 36 and this 33, maybe all the way down to 32 level, I really want to watch the auction. My first long opportunity is going to be down here between 31 and 31.75. So on my chart, I have my closing swing. Actually, closing swing low is 29.50. Just set these levels. Low of yesterday was at 23.50. My closing swing low was 29.50. Closing swing high was, I believe, 31.50. And the close was at 30.50. Yeah, I've got it at 30.50. Okay, which is right around a low volume area, a longer term low volume area. So I'm really interested in a trade, possibly off of closing swing high. It's also the 24-hour open. So this area is down to about 31. Very interesting for me for a potential long this morning. Why not consider the visit to yesterday's POC volume point of control as the most likely scenario? And that might be. So the volume point of control is 30. So let's just take a look at that. That may happen. The close from yesterday is at 30.50. This low volume area is around 31. Hang on a second. Let's split the difference here. So there's a lot of activity right here, and our VPOC from yesterday is down at 30. So what happens, what starts to come into play is, if there is a print that tells me to get in long around 31.75, 31.50, possibly down to 31, if I get in long here, what I have to consider in this trade is that the close and VPOC may get tagged. And this is where trading can get a little tough, because I have a level that's 31 to 31.75, and let's say the print comes down or price comes down this morning. It gives me a print that says we're weak at the bid, we're getting strength at the offer, and I go long. I go long, and it starts turning around, and I start getting more strength in at the bid. Now, I have a couple of choices as a trader. I can move my stop and say, boy, this could turn at 31.50. My range was 31.75 down to 31. That's 3 ticks. I can put my stop right behind that, but I have a composite low volume area at 30.75, and right below that is the close, and then right below that is VPOC. So I automatically know that psychologically in this trade, I am at a significant disadvantage. I know it because there are all these levels down here that price could come and hit and turn at. So what I have to do is adjust my size, knowing that there is additional risk. So if I got long at 31.50, let's say, I don't know that I want to carry that 2 points. I don't know that I want to carry the trade 2 points. I certainly don't want to carry that trade 2 points with 5 contracts or 10 contracts. And the reality is, I don't know right now. I don't know what's going to happen. So we could get a great bounce, 31.50, 31.75. You know, this was a relatively significant area. But when I look at this activity to the downside yesterday, 31, this held quite a few times yesterday. And in the overnight here, 31, 30.50. So if I get long at 31.50, I know I automatically have to give it a point. I have to give it through 30.50. And then, right, let's say I put my stop at 30.25. To your point, where's VPOC? It may turn here, but here's the psychology is, let's say I get in at 31.50, and I go through psychology only because it's very real. Let's say I get in at 31.50 and it starts coming against me, and I go, okay, I'm good because I said I would give it to 30.25. And it starts coming down. There's still some strength to the bid. It's coming down, and I go, oh, I've taken this thing now a point and a quarter, and I only need to give it a little bit more room, maybe 2-3 ticks to see if it'll stop at 30. Maybe I can scale in if I want to or add in, but you know, now I'm down here. I put my stop at 29.75. If it comes down here and there's still strength at the bid, I go, well, there's my closing swing low at 29.50. I'm going to put my stop behind it, and that's my final. I mean, if I get stopped at 29.50, now I'm done. And then I look and I say, oh wow, I had a low volume area here at 29. So the psychology, I know that I'm going to be my worst enemy in this trade, because I'm going to see all of these levels that price, including VPOC, that price could go to, and I'm going to start trading based on these. And what I'm going to do, and this is from day one from the training last week, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop trading what's going on in the print between buyers and sellers, and I'm going to start trading based on what happened yesterday. And as soon as I do that, I've given up control. I've given up control, because remember, all I know is what is happening in the print. That is my truth. These are potential levels, and I will give the trade a little bit to work with, but I have to be disciplined enough to know that if I get in at 31.50 long, and I see strength coming back at the bid, pushing down into my trade, if I get out at 2 ticks and it pops right back up, I see weakness at the bid, a lot of strength coming back into the offer, I can just get back in. I can just get back in and look to get those 2 ticks back up to yesterday's high, potentially. But if I don't, I know psychologically I'm at a significant disadvantage, and if sellers keep pressing into the day, VPOC might not be the only place to test to. If it tests down to, let's say I hold on to this trade and it tests down here and all of a sudden the volume profile starts building out, now I'm in real trouble because it's gaining acceptance down here and this might go further. So that's it's a great question about VPOC. I don't assume that price will go here. I have a trade based on everything that I'm looking at here that says this is, it might be as high as 32, but this is the area I'm interested in, 31 to 31.75. If it starts coming through there, this is very likely. The close is likely, VPOC is likely, and so I'll take my loss of a couple ticks, maybe 3, and wait to see what happens in here. Because looking at if it comes all the way down here, one of two things are likely going to happen. We're either going to get rejection off of this level down here. You can see a kind of a range here from yesterday, that low volume area, 31.75. Or we're going to start moving up and potentially just go higher on the day. And, it might be a moot point because when I look at where we're at right now, we're back up to this 37, which I was hoping for. And again, remember, I wanted to see strength coming back in at 37. But we're 9 minutes away from the open, and we're opening up a little above 36. But remember what I said, if it opens up right at 36, 36.25, just above the high of day yesterday, I don't know that I'm super excited to trade. The only thing that I can tell you is that right now, the activity to the bid, which could change, and this is why the RTH session becomes really important, that could change in a hurry right after the open. So one of the things that we'll go through today is actually building these charts so you can build them yourself, because it sounds like people are having difficulty with the templates. So again, what I do is I start, right, if price opens up between 19.29 and 31, and all I would do for the day is just change this to 30 to 1931.75. If it opened up between that level, I'm likely going to wait. So that just tells me I'm going to wait to see the developing structure, volume profile structure, and look for, are we accepting price higher or lower? If it opens up above 36, I should have had a scenario for 36. I didn't do this last night because I wanted to wait till this morning. If it opens up above 36, I will look for long opportunity. I would tell you right now, I need to be a little careful because the pre-market, I'm seeing activity come back in at the offer, which is great. You got to be a little careful. If we get a print at the open, real weak at the bid, a lot of strength back in the offer, 36.25, 36.50, this may be a good long, but you better know that if we get any strength coming back in at the bid around 35.75, 35.50, we're going to need to bail on that trade. It's one of the issues about trading right away at the open is you can have some amazing trades and you can get stopped pretty quickly. The other scenario is if price opens below 31. If price opens below 31, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen right now, but if price were to open below 31, what I would do is I would say I want to see, before I go short, just off of 31.75, I would want to verify that today's participants are building volume at 30. As long as I get VPOC at 30, even the morning developing VPOC, I see volume coming in here, and we show weakness up to about 31.75, 32, I'm going to start looking for a short back down into the meat of this range here. So again, I'm looking to see what did the overnight do, and it's moved out of range. What is the pre-market doing relative to yesterday's prices? And what I'm trying to determine early on is this market going to accept yesterday's prices? And if so, is it just going to be a test, or are they really going to accept it? Or are yesterday's prices yesterday, and they're going to reject yesterday prices, and we would start to look higher? And when we start looking higher, we start using this chart to say, I'm looking for acceptance and volume building out at 33.75, and if I get that, and this market will auction through, up through that, meaning we get good buying up through this high volume area, and this is showing me today that this is being accepted, then I'm going to start looking higher to 41.25 and a test up to 45, 44.50 to 45. So I have a scenario for price to come lower, right? If it gets below this 31.75 level, 32, and that's, we start seeing weakness at the offer up there, we get acceptance at 30, I would look for a test of 23.50. And if we get acceptance around this 26 level, 26 area, down to 25, remember we created that range, then we actually, if this is fair price for the day, around this 26, 24, 26 level, then we very well may see a test down to 17 again. So do you see how I'm using this? If this is going to be, if today proves that this is fair price, 33.50, right up in that area, and we're getting acceptance and we're seeing weakness at the bid down around 31 to 31.75 in this area, if sellers have no conviction through this area and we're getting conviction here, sellers are likely going to find a different place to get active because they can't make money here. And so if this is an unfair price for them, and they're not willing to take price through it, then they're going to have to find another place where they might be able to make money. The first place where that is likely going to be is potentially back up here at 40 and then 44.50. So does that make sense what I'm doing there and how I'm using the profile? Okay. All right, we have an open here in about a minute and a half. Right now it looks like we're opening above yesterday's high. So one of the things, I'm not going to say that I expect it, but one of the things I would really like to see, I would really like to see a test back down to 36. May not get it, but I'd like to see it. Now remember, I said I'm looking for strength to come back in the offer around 37. If that happens, 37.25, and they're willing to, buyers are willing to auction price through. So they're willing to have enough conviction to keep doing market orders, lifting the offer, lifting the offer, lifting the offer. I want to see the conviction to actually take price higher. If they're willing to do that, then the VPOC of the overnight is 37.25, and that gives me a little bit better feel for whether or not I want to take a long off of yesterday's high of day. All right, here's our open. And my chart's not populating. Hang on a second. There we go at 37.25. I like to have those done prior to the open, but when you're talking, you don't always have that flexibility. So what I'm looking at here is we're getting some activity at the bid here. You can see buyers, or the activity at the offer, is doing a pretty good job of moving price higher. We have a composite low volume area right up in this right up at this level. Let me just bring that down. Bring it over here. Right here, a little bit higher at 41. And very strong. I'm going to you can see volume growing up. I want to see the edge of this. You can see volume going higher. So right now what I'm really looking for, my trade was down at 36. The open was at 37.25, and I really don't have, I never gave me an opportunity to take that trade. We got a probe higher, and so right now I just need to let it go. I can't do anything until buyers kind of resolve to the upside, and I can see what our push to the downside is going to be. I'm looking at I'm using two value areas. One is Globex. So when I talked about the value area in the homework, I'm using just the RTH session. But I am considering, I usually don't trade off of the overnight. Hang on a second. The overnight, here. This is the overnight value area from 39.75 to 36.25. I'm using that as a reference area. I'm not looking, it's not part of my trade plan. I'm not looking for a short up at 39.50 per se. I'm not necessarily looking for a long down at 36. Well, I am, because it's yesterday's high. But that would just add some confluence to the trade, nothing more. So as I'm doing my pre-market analysis, I am using the Globex value area, but all of the numbers, just to clarify, all of the numbers from on this sheet, when I do my homework, is from the RTH session. RTH session only. This is all from the RTH session. Yeah, and I don't, and to your point, Peter, relative to assumptions, I don't have any assumptions per se. What I'm trying to determine is, what are the interests of these buyers and sellers? All I have is what I've seen in the overnight. I know what the overnight's levels are. What I'm trying to determine now, I compared that to the RTH session from yesterday. What I'm trying to determine now is this session's RTH participants agreeing with yesterday, disagreeing with yesterday? What are their conviction levels? Where are they weak? Where are the buyers weak? Where are the buyers strong? Where are the sellers weak? Where are the sellers strong? So I have no assumptions. All I have is the data, And I'm trying to determine, because I'm in the RTH session, I'm making trades in the RTH session, I'm trying to determine the best areas for trade opportunities given the data that I have. Yeah, and I, relative to RTH value area, again, those are levels that are relatively standard. You're right, standard value determination from VPOC 68.2 to 70% for standard deviation. So you're exactly right in that regard. However, it's only a factor in my overall trading. I don't want to say that I don't necessarily care about standards, but standards provide opportunities. What I have to focus on is what's real, which is in the print. So, and that's not to take anything away from value areas and standard calculations and things of that nature. But again, my assumption is that when I place my trade, the only thing that's going to make my trade win or lose are these current buyers and sellers. So there's a low volume area right here at 38.25. We're getting acceptance right now, VPOC up at 39. There hasn't been any significant attempt to move lower. Our open was at 37.25. We had one tick below that. So right now, everything is telling me, there's our opening swing high. Right now, everything is saying that these market participants are rejecting yesterday's prices. I can see activity coming in at the bid, pretty strong at the bid. So good selling into this. A little less strength at the offer now. So I just don't have a trade right here. And I'm okay with that. I really am. I would rather wait and let these two sides wrestle and work it out before taking a trade. And if I don't take a trade till after IB is set, I'm okay with that too. And Peter, you're exactly right. The majority of the market is going to be trading between that 68.2 and 70%. And for those volume of traders that trade value areas, that's where you're going to find activity. You are exactly right. If you want to make 50% or 80% your value area, you can do it, but you're not going to find opportunities at those levels. So with that, for me, Peter, it's a framework. It's a framework that I understand, and I understand the context of the overall market and where a lot of systems, especially market profile systems, trade. However, I used to be in a room where they traded pure market profile, and one of their bread and butter trades was value area, and it was 68.2, and it was calculated perfectly, and they traded against value area low and value area high, and the number of times I got burned trading just pure value area, just trading those levels, was enough for me to actually bail out of that room. So the value area starts to become a structure that says to me, this is where the bulk of trade is. So if I'm going to trade on these edges of value, I still need to respect the print. I need to respect overall what this market's trying to do, understanding that in the larger scope of things, if price starts moving higher, if price is being accepted higher and it starts moving higher, where is it most likely to go? And even most likely doesn't guarantee anything. So I'm going to leave I'm going to take this chart away. I'm going to leave this opening swing low at 37. If for some reason price starts coming through 37, I still have a trade opportunity at yesterday's high around 36. But right now, what I'm reading in this market is this was yesterday's range, and we are getting, I would say, pretty strong consensus that we are rejecting, at least right now, we are rejecting yesterday's prices. However, with that said, I see activity at the bid, activity at the bid. I see a finish to the profile to the upside. And so what I'm looking for now is I really want to see that test back down to yesterday's high. So right now the participants have said we're accepting prices lower. That's great. Let's see that. Let's see what happens when sellers actually start pushing. So I have a potential trade opportunity around this 36 level, and then my next one was down at 31 to 31.75. Got weakness at the bid right here at 36.75. So what I'm looking at now, the volume clusters really helped me identify. We had selling coming in, good selling coming in here. And this was not, as I read this, this is not a result of this buying. So this isn't a liquidation. This to me is initiative selling. So what I'm looking for, we got VPOC at 38.75. If we start getting strength back at the bid, or at the offer rather, this is a scenario where I might take a breakout because we've tested lower, we've got weakness at the bid. Sellers really are not at this point having any kind of conviction. That may change, but right now they're not having any conviction. So if we get strength back into the offer around 38.75 and higher, we continue to get strength, then again, what I do is I bring this out and I say, we're getting acceptance over this 33.75 right around here is 33.75. We're getting strength, and we have a low volume area in the longer term right around 41, right around 41, 40.75. But if we're getting acceptance up here, where's the most logical, likely level? If this market wants to go higher, where is it most likely to test? And that's going to be up at this 44.50, 45 level. So I would look at this and say, well, the sellers tried. They were able to bring price down, and well, they were kind of able to bring price down because buyers showed a little bit of weakness here. But this was their opportunity to try to take this lower. Does it mean that price won't go lower yet today? No, not at all. But again, all I have is the information that the market is showing me. So right now, this market is saying we're rejecting yesterday's prices. And if we're really rejecting yesterday's prices, and this is really where the market considers the morning value, then we're more likely to go test up here, 44.50, 45 level. And again, I just want to be really clear. The way that I've learned to trade, I started this on day one, is to trade with buyers and sellers. Trade with what they're telling you. Does it mean you're always going to be right? No, but trade with what they're telling you. You can't do anything about algos. You can't do anything about other people. You can't do anything about high frequency traders. All you can do is read what the print is telling you, because the print, if I have any assumption at all in the market, is that my print is truth. My print is truth. The volume profile is a result of the overall auction, the overall print. It validates for me with the print whether the market truly is accepting higher prices or not. So for example, here's my VPOC for the morning up at 38.75. The print will tell me if this market truly is accepting higher prices, which means I want to see not only activity at the offer over here, but I want to see price moving higher. Price is moving lower, but it's moving lower on a weak print at the offer side. So again, that, if there's any assumption I make, it's that. That's it. Any other assumption I make in the market, I found gets my hand slapped pretty easily, pretty quickly. All right, so we're seeing continued strength at the bid, but weakness at the offer. So I'd expect at least a little bit of bounce off of this level. But again, remember, I look a couple levels up and I'm seeing continued strength into the bid. This doesn't look finished to me in the auction, doesn't look finished to the downside. It's an interesting morning. So what do? I consider this a test up here. This is a test to me, a test to the upside. We're at 36. Again, this was an opportunity for a trade. I really want to see, this may turn around, but I really want to see more strength coming back in at the offer. So weakness here at 36.25 at the bid. This is a potential for a long trade. And then what we'd have to do is watch to make sure if any strength comes back into the bid at 36.25 and 36, we're probably still going to touch 35.75. So what I'm looking for now is to see if buyers can get through this level. So even if I took this trade and I got in at 36.50, I'm looking at this cluster here, and this is one of the things I look at with a cluster is how significant are the numbers. And this is a relatively significant cluster. I mean, the cluster does a great job of telling you per bar and per probe where volume is coming into the market. But also remember that every bar has a cluster as long as you set it up. So what you have to do is not just see the cluster, you have to look inside of it and say, what's the relative strength of that? And the relative strength of these clusters to the downside, to the bid side, is pretty strong. So I'm expecting another touch of at least 35.75 and possibly lower. Let me just see what kind of news we have. Business inventory is at 10. So that's coming up. We're going to take a break right before that. So we're pushing down into yesterday's prices. We're going to go at least another tick, I believe. Oh, weakness right there. Getting strength back into the offer. This may bounce a couple of ticks up, but I don't We'll see. Getting strength back in the bid here at 36. I'm not willing to take this long. And I do have my RTH profile going. So I actually would consider, and I'd have to give this a little bit of room through 36.50, but consider a short here. Let's see what happens at 36.50 here. Yeah, I want to see what happens if we got up to 36.50. The reason is because you can see the weakness at the offer there. What I'd want to see is if at 36.50, if that offer got any stronger. And if not, and we started getting strength quickly back down at the bid at 36.25, I would tell you that we've got the makings of a pretty decent short, and possibly down to yesterday's VPOC. Or at least that 31 level. All right. There's 36.50. We got weakness in the offer, a little bit more strength at the bid. Yeah, this may be so I'm not going to give it a whole lot of room. If it starts climbing above 37 back into this area, I really don't want it. So I'm going to look at a 3-tick stop with this. And let's see if we can start making any traction to the downside. So my first warning sign is if strength starts coming back into the offer at 36.50. You can see that occurring here. We're getting more activity at the offer. I could look at this weakness right here. So I see this as unfinished down here. It's just a matter of how much I'm willing to hold on to it. So I can see a lot more strength coming back into the offer, or more strength coming back into the offer at 36.50. So one of the things I have to consider is that this is this may start to challenge this cluster here. This does not look finished to the downside. So all I'm doing now is managing my risk. We have I'll show you here, a little bit, and this could have influenced my trade, but I'm just reading the print. You can see right here we have a little bit of a low volume area at 37. See that right there? And that's where we came up to, right up to 37. Are there IB numbers for the current session? Not yet for the current session. So we're just into yesterday's range, and I'm watching this profile right here. I really want to start to see more activity at the bid. I really want to see this start to build out volume and push down into yesterday's range. So I want to see more activity at the bid with this trade. And all I'm doing now at this point is managing my risk. Right, so if we get a lot of strength at the offer, we're still getting some pressure at the bid, which is good. I'm watching my profile over here and trying to determine, do I have a finish or not? Does it look like participants are stepping away? And that could be. So I need to manage this. I don't want to take away much else. And so I'm going to put my stop down just a little bit. Because here's my premise is that if sellers really going to take this down, then I want to see them get, I don't want to just see the activity at the bid. I want to see price actually moving. And we've moved down pretty well, but look at these last several bars. They're having some difficulty actually moving price. So I want to see the big movement in price. Seeing a little bit of volume come out. We got a little bit of a low volume area here at 35. So if I would have seen this low volume area here up at 37, I might have moved this stop up just a little bit more. So you can see the volume coming out. You see this profile growing down here. We're getting a little bit of volume. Got a little bit of low volume area at 35. This is where you can start managing the trade. I can see activity here, 14, 15, good activity at the bid. And so now what I'm doing is I'm starting to look at where my possible targets are. And to do that, I'll look at yesterday's range. Got a low volume area. Remember, 31.75 is a low volume area, so 32, and then possibly back down into yesterday's close. So the hardest thing in trading to manage is a one contract trade. So what I could do, I'm expecting at least a push back up to 35 here, 35, 35.50. So I could look to take profit and maybe get back in if I see weakness at the next bar here at 35.50, 35.75. Again, I'm looking for, and there's weakness there, so got my money back. But 35.50 is about where I would be looking for, no higher now than 36. So if there were significant strength back at the offer up at 36, I would consider waiting. But if this comes in weak at the offer, 35.75, 35.50, because I am expecting now a test back up here. Good volume, good push. Right now, sellers are being held down here. We have a little bit of a low volume area here at 35. And I'm not taking a trade yet. What about the volume level around 34.75 from 2 days ago? That's a great question. Take a look at that. Very glad you're asking that question. 34.75. So I look at 2 days ago, and here's the volume profile. It definitely was a low volume area from Friday, Monday, here's today, Friday, and it had meaning, right? So that's a good level. Yesterday I can see, price slipped above it, but it had some meaning relative to the overall price. This 34.50 had some meaning to the relative price. And so the fact that buyers are stepping in here now is not not just a coincidence. So that's a very good catch. Very good catch. Thomas, good job. That tells me you're more than doing your homework. You're looking for meaning in the market, and you're looking to see if it's one thing to find a low volume area, but it's another thing to see if price is really respecting that. So good job. Very good job. So we're not surprised to see we're not surprised to see price, bounce a little bit off of 34.75, and that tells us something about this current market as well. But what does it tell you now? If price comes down pretty strong below 34.50, Thomas, what does that tell you? If we start seeing volume building at around 34, 33.75, what is, given yesterday's profile, what's the most likely scenario for price to go to? Using this information. No problem. Take your time. I understand. I'll give you a little. And so since you've done this, I'm going to give you a little clue. See this low volume area yesterday at 31.50, 31.75? And we can see it had meaning. Look at where the low was the previous day. So anyone, if we start getting volume below 34 now, we start getting more acceptance lower, where is price most likely to go and test? My mic is on, right? Down towards VPOC from yesterday, or at the very least, yes, 31.50 to 31.75. That is correct. Kev, Ben, Simon, Roberto, excellent. Because what are you starting to see? You see some confluence here, right? So price is up into Friday's range. VPOC from Friday was 32.50. VPOC for today, acceptance right now for today is up at 36.25. If we start getting more volume below this 34, more activity, then the most likely scenario of test is down to at least this VPOC, and most likely you are correct, down to 31.50, 31.75. And we can see confluence. This was the low of Friday. Was also a low volume area yesterday that had meaning, right? Unfair high or unfair low, kind of passed through, choked a little bit through it, but once it got below, it had meaning again. It was an unfair high. So you guys are right. The most likely place for this to test is down to 31.75, 31.50. What is my swing low from today's opening? Oh, let me show you what I did. That's a great question, Thomas. Let me show you what I did for today's opening. So what happened is we had our opening swing high here at 39.75, fell back down, and then the initial opening swing low was at 37. Once sellers pushed through the open, this is where they pushed to at 36.75, and then they pushed back up. So I moved, and I said I may move. I'm going to leave it there for now, but I may move it. If once it comes through the open, I said I may move it. This is the opening swing low. Great question, 36.75, and look what just happened. So here, I might be a little late, but here I would go back to the bid. Excellent question. Thank you for asking that. I'd go back to the bid, see weakness at 36.75. still a little bit of strength at the offer. That's not quite the weakness I'm looking for in the offer at 36.75, but there's strength coming back in at the bid, and so this is a level I would look to take a short again off of opening swing low, and I would put my stop probably 37.25. So this would be, I would be looking for price to break through 34.50 and possibly lower. So the risk reward on this would be about, 2 ticks, no more than 3, to potentially 3, 4, or more points. Good. So you got 36.75 too. Good. That was a great question. And again, we talked about these opening and closing swings. This opening swing, first push by buyers, first real push by sellers was here. And then once price got underneath it, you can see that it has effectively held price. Now, if price breaks through the open at 37.25, I may start looking long again, back up to a test of 39.75. Like I said, looking at the print, I did not like that weakness. I did not like that weakness at 36.75, so I wasn't about to take that short. All right, we're at the open, 37.25. So this is an interesting move. What are you seeing in the print? There was activity at the bid down here, a little bit here, and then above that 36.50 level, seller said, we're out. Not a lot of activity at the aggressive activity at the bid over here. So basically, we're in the middle of the day of this morning. I don't have a trade here. We're through this little bit of a low volume nodule there at 37. But I just don't have a trade here. Now, if you were a scalper and you were just trading the print, this combination up here would be a good short. If you were a scalper, this would be a good short. You'd be looking for price to come down through this cluster, this buying cluster right here, and you would take some off right in front of it. You'd take some off at 36.75. And if price simply came back up to 37.75 and started getting strength at the offer, you'd be out of your trade. Interesting auction so far today. So right now, this market has dipped into, briefly, dipped into yesterday's range. Where's VPOC now? VPOC is now at 36.25, just above yesterday's high. So VPOC was up here, then it moved down here, and now it's down 36.25. So VPOC is moving a little bit lower. We've got a leg into yesterday's range and then higher. All right, I said we'd take a break at 9. I need to take a quick break. I'll be back in a few minutes. Let's take it's going to be about 10-15 minute break. All right, that's thank you. This auction still doesn't, there's a lot of volume there at 34.50. And from the activity here, so this is how I'm reading this. We know we had that level, right? 34, right here, 34.75, 34.50. We have this level. We can see buyers stepping in here. So this tells me even more. If we start getting more activity below 34, 33.75. Now it may come down, finish quick, and pop back up. If that's the case, then we're likely headed higher. We're likely headed to that 44, 45 level. But as I look over at the print, weakness, weakness, price is going up. I see sellers just stepping away. Again, I really need to see. We had good buying here at 37.50. It was held. So I'm not reading anything right now that says 44, 50, 45. If anything, I'm reading a potential for this to get taken out, 34. But we're kind of in the middle here. Right, here's 36, 20, 36 from yesterday. We're getting a lot of activity through 36. So basically, what I'm not getting is any kind of strong sentiment from these buyers or sellers that they're going to accept or reject yesterday's price. VPOC is sitting almost right on top of yesterday's high. So it's kind of the same thing. Whenever we have VPOC from a current day sitting on top of a key area, and yesterday's high to me is a key area, it just tells me that we've got a little bit of a battle going on. But as I read the print, we'll see. Yeah, I'm going to use this 37 as a key level. If price starts getting above this 37.50 and this starts acting as some kind of support, so buyers start holding sellers, then I'll look for a long. But I just don't have a trade up in the middle in this area right here, right now. So again, because I know that buyers and sellers will take my trade either, profit or loss, I'm always looking for an edge, and that edge is a test area that makes logical sense, low volume area on the day, longer term low volume area. I'm looking for that level to test and fail, and then look to take the trade. Or I'm looking for that test to succeed and then take the trade at a pullback. But I just can't see the conviction. I'm not saying that it won't go to 44 or 45. What I'm saying is right now, I see issues at the offer up here. You see what I'm looking at? Now, if that changes, if it changes, we start getting strength back up above 37.50 at the offer, then I'll look for a price to come back down, test this level, the bid to fail, strength back in the offer at 38 to go long. So that's, and I told you I build if-then scenarios as the day goes on. So that's my if-then scenario for a long right now. My if-then scenario for a short, and honestly, anywhere in here, this is fair price. So what do we expect at fair price? We expect price to go down, up, down. We expect rotation. So you could take it short here, but if it breaks through, it's likely there's no coming back from this if it breaks through. So nothing I would love to do more than pop this up to 5, take a 2 to 3 point trade, and have a good profit for this morning. But as I look at all of this, especially with VPOC sitting right on yesterday's high, this is right now. This is telling me that there's too little of specific conviction. Does that make sense? Opening swing high, opening swing low for me today is right here. Opening swing high is 39.75. Opening swing low is 36.75. Having difficulty really getting any strength, continued strength through the open here. So it's another reason why we may see price come back down to this area. So my position is we are likely either going to see 30 and lower today, or we're going to see 44, 45 and higher. And so when I look at these trades above 37.50, 38 level, on a pullback and go long, I look at this and say there's a lot of room for profit to the upside. And even at 34, there's 2 to 3 points of profit to the downside. So, I'm trying to make money here. I'm not just trying to guess. And price may come down from here. But I really want to trade on the other side of IB now. And IB is set in 3 minutes. So my best trade scenario for the day right now is once IB sets, and if you look, we're going to have I don't want to say a tight IB, but initial balance. But right now we're looking at 34 to 39.75, so about 6 points, which is just a little under. It's on the low side of average. So what I'd rather do now is look for IB to be broken. Look for at IB a low volume area to develop on the day, and then take a pullback at that low volume area or just in front of it, from here up to the 44.50, 45 level, from here down to potentially 31.75, potentially down to 30. So either way, I have a trade. I just have to wait for it. Does that make sense? You guys can hear me again, right? Okay, thanks. So I'd love to be able to say to you, hey guys, look at this, weakness, weakness, go short. This is going to be a great trade. It's coming all the way back down here. But the print is showing no specific conviction. And so if you really are doing this to make money, then what you got to do is kind of set some, I would say for me, pride aside and say, even though I'd love to take a trade and get on and take this down for a couple points, and that may work great, because we're getting such non-conviction here today, my best trade scenario is going to be this. Low volume area, IB to the upside. I would love to see a bounce off of 41, pull back to this high for a long. That would be a great trade. I would love that trade, especially if this maintained a low volume area at the top of IB. Or a breakout to the downside, maintain low volume area here at 34.25, take a short at 34. IB range is small compared to yesterday. Does that mean less conviction? We just had business inventory. So I'd tell you we already have less conviction. I mean, even yesterday, with the close, the way it closed near, right near VPOC, the way it came back down, it couldn't maintain activity. It couldn't maintain price down here, and it closed back up here towards VPOC. This is a day that's no conviction. I mean, granted, there was activity more to the downside, but this was a no conviction day. And we're seeing that as well, except for the fact that we're getting more volume above yesterday's range than into yesterday's range. But it doesn't mean that I'm taking a trade long, if that makes sense. But yeah, if you have an IB that's small, and in that IB you've got a pretty decent distribution and profile with a strong finish, which we don't have right now, strong finish to the downside, strong finish to the upside. When you have that kind of setup, you get a low volume area as IB breaks, you've got a pretty good setup for a trade long, because what this would be saying is no conviction, finally have some conviction, low volume area, which is an unfair low, take that long. If it starts getting back into the day's range, so be it. I would still take that trade with range extension to the upside if we broke above that level. However, if we came all the way back down and broke through, even after range extension to the upside, I would look to take a short on a retest here. Yeah, the above was really set by the overnight trading range. RTH has done little so far. Exactly. RTH has done very little to extend the overnight range. That is exactly right. So my trade is to wait. I'm going to grab a drink of water. I'll be right back. So let me see if I can see anything in oil. Oil has been pretty flatline for the last several days. BPOC on the day is 97.43. Got a low volume area right here, 97.14. Came back up to 12. Doesn't quite look finished to the downside. But oil has been since 11th, there was a little bit of movement, but yesterday was relatively flat. Now, the other thing about today is we're about to get into, or maybe we just did, let me just see. No, yeah, petroleum status report just came out, and it was crude inventories 1401 versus expectation of minus. So the expectation was a big drawdown, and there was additional surplus. Now, I will tell you this oil, my experience, the oil inventories that come out can affect price like FOMC on the ES. But if, for example, we have expected drawdown, a big expected drawdown, and instead of a drawdown, there was a surplus, with higher supply, you would expect price to do what? Go down, right? I can tell you that with oil on that news, you can have exactly just the opposite. Okay. So we had oil inventories and no new low. I'd be really careful of oil right now. This may just go a couple of ticks and just start rocketing higher. Got a intraday low volume area right, if I expand this out, right there that I would look at. 31, 97.31, 97.32. If it gets through that, it's likely coming up to 43 and then possibly testing up to this 50 level. But that is a trade in a low volume area that I would look at. 30 to 32 if it comes back up there. Oh, this is where you can get whipped pretty quick on oil. Low volume area, 96, 93. What's ES doing? Blah, blah, blah. Sorry. Sorry. And by the way, this is August, so, you know, we're entering the second week in August here, so don't, expectations are pretty low. Here is oil. You can see some strength down here at the bid. Certainly activity they're trying to push. Weakness here. This will be an interesting auction. Neutral auction into buying. This is one of those scenarios where you could see, again, you could see this just tick down a little bit, and then next thing you know, boom, it's off to the races. Even with inventories the way it was. So again, just to be really clear, this is the level I'm looking at between right here up to this 30 to 32 right in here. As it came down through here, right in here is what I'm looking at for a trade. 30, maybe 32. Short. See this weakness, all this activity at the bid here, boom, boom, a lot of activity at the bid. Watch them all get stopped. Do I trade mostly ES? Yes, every now and then I'll trade oil. I will tell you right now, the only trade I want on oil is up around that 30, 32 level. Only trade I would want on oil. But I trade ES mostly. Ah, good, we're finally getting some activity, 38.50, good, good, good. Bring up the profile. Still finished. Again, my best case scenario is range extension to the upside to the high of Friday, a turn here with a new distribution building, more volume building, low volume area remaining at 39.75.40 to take a trade long at around 40 and a quarter. That would be a great trade scenario. Now the other one I could see, now that we have conviction up here, is potentially going along around 37.25, right there. Maybe 37.50. Come on down. Come on. Sometimes I talk to the market, let it know that nobody's going to hurt it down here. It can come on down, give me the trade I want, and take me into profit. But those are usually, like today, days in August where it isn't moving. So this auction right here, this 188 by 1718, tells me there were a lot of excited buyers up here still. A lot of excited buyers. Come on. Now I want to be real careful here because this profile is finished to the upside, and we're, except for the downside, we're getting a nice distribution. So what I got to be careful of is that this really is the high of day and price come back down to 36.25. However, this was a pretty strong statement by the buyers up here at 39. So I kind of want to see price. This is a possibility at 37.75, 37.50, and there we go, 37.50. No guarantee that. Let's see, got some weakness there at the bid. No, more strength at the bid. All right, let me give this a try. Partially because I'm getting a little bored too. I got weakness here right at this cluster where the buying stepped in. It's right at this level, 37.25, 37.50. If I start getting a lot more strength to the bid, I'll just get out of the trade. But I want to be really clear. This is not the trade that I was looking for. This is one of the issues with trading in August is you get these doldrums and it's sitting around, and psychologically it's like, man, am I ever going to get a trade? And my best trade was this break of IB at what was that, 39.75? Yeah, 39.75, and take a long back off of that. But you know, this was another scenario that I had set up with low volume here around 37. So what I want to see in this, because of the strength back at the offer here, I really want to start to see this thing get strength at the offer, and I want to see it start to affect price. So I'm expecting at least another tag of 39 back where the buyers were. So I'm going to take that first contract. If it gets up there, I'll take that first one there because I don't know what could happen beyond 39. All I can see is that there was strength at the offer up here at 39. So I have an expectation that buyers will revisit that and retest that. What they do after that, I really don't know. So we got weakness at the bid or at the offer here at 38.25. Strength coming back at the bid at 38. I need to be prudent because this could come all the way back down to VPOC. And if I get strength back in the offer here or at the bid at 37.50, I very well may not want that trade anyway. So the best case scenario for me is that buyers now take this up through IB and actually give me an opportunity to add into this trade. So I like the trade still. I really don't really care to see this much activity at the bid, because what this tells me is that sellers are still active up here. And by sellers, I mean aggressive sellers. On the daily profile, the day range so far has been set by the D and E. Yeah, we have IB is set. The high of IB is here at 39.75, and the low of IB is down at 34. Relative to this trade, I really don't like to see that activity at the bid with weakness at the offer. It's not saying that this trade won't work, and I really do expect to see something up here. But again, this is my truth as of this moment. Now, the other thing I can inherently look to is with all this activity at the bid, here, I can see that sellers are actively engaged. But it also, if this starts moving back up and through this level, they're likely going to get stopped. If they're interested in price here, and I can see that they're actively interested, they believe there's value lower, and they get stopped out, then they're likely to look for another place to get in, which will be the high from Friday. So again, what I have to be prepared for is price coming all the way back down to VPOC at 36, 36.25, 36.50. Back down here. Does that make sense what I'm telling you? The only thing I know is what I see relative to this trade. And what I know is that we have active, aggressive sellers. I mean, look at the amount here, 31.14. And this isn't a situation where buyers are releasing inventory. This isn't inventory management. This is initiative selling going on here at 38. Buyers so far are holding. Yeah, trade what you see, not what you think. And again, for me, there's just nothing better to define the truth, what I see, than this OFA print. It helps me be patient. It helps me wait. It helps me wait in a trade. Now, I know a lot of traders who they'll get into a trade, and this took a while. I mean, this was relatively painful. This took a while for it to really break through here. And after a certain amount of time, they'd just say, they'd base it on time. They'd say, I'm out. I'm done. I'm out. But I can look at the print here and make an objective decision. And hopefully that objectivity is proving to be a good decision. So if I wanted to right now, I can see activity coming back in at the bid. I can take a point on this and basically make this a little better than break-even trade. I still have a contract left. I still believe that 39 is going to get tagged again. But here's the problem. The problem, and I'm doing this for example's sake, is psychology. And you're into a trade, it's starting to work, you're looking for a target, it comes up just short of your target, and you go, ah, and you have all this euphoria about making money, and then price starts coming back down, you might lose money, and it really starts messing with your overall psychology. So it's better, especially in August, to take some profit, and see that all the way back down. Better to take some profit, secure the trade, and to move on from there. You can see more activity coming in at the bid. Now I got stopped. And that just doesn't feel good. More activity coming in at the bid. Best case scenario now is I get out at break even. There's more activity, or I just let me do this. If I start getting more activity down at the bid, I'll just take my lumps and expect price to, like I said, price could come all the way back down to VPOC or lower. If trading were easy, everybody would do it, right? Thanks, Roberto. Thanks, Jimmy. So I just know that even with seeing the print, even with reading all of this, I know that you know, when I'm dealing with money, I know that my psychology can be affected, and affected significantly, to the point where even though I see the print and I'm reading it, I can make bad choices. So once I got this weakness and strength card started coming back to the offer, and we talked about this last week, it's at that point you're reading truth and you're saying, whoa, weakness, strength, time to get some off. I don't need to be proud. I don't need to let this trade work, you know, because when you do that, you take your lumps. So now I'm looking at this trade saying, well, I've managed my risk. I've taken one tick off with one contract. Big deal, right? Was that 1250 less cost of the contract? This level is still relatively holding, and price, I'm still looking for at least a tag of 39. We've had a probe lower, right? See the red probe lower, probe lower. The VCA tells me that it's, and the print tells me as well, it's a neutral auction. So we've had two attempts by sellers and a big attempt here by sellers. They're really wanting price lower. They don't want price above this area. You can see it. This is not a release of inventory. This isn't buyers, you know, releasing inventory back down here. This is sellers actively engaging, trying to push price back down. This is hard. Yep. But you see what I did? I managed my risk. I said, okay, if it starts coming through here, then possibly VPOC, maybe even a little bit lower. And because I'm a risk manager first, you know, taking a tick here, I still have a long trade up here if this breaks out above IB. Worst thing for me right now that could happen today is to have a completely inside day, meaning all trade inside of IB. That would be the worst day possible. Those are almost impossible days to trade. Volume right now, overall volume is pathetic. It's anemic. I normally gauge an auction strength. I gotta watch this here. See, now we got strength coming back in at the bid here at 37.75. So my problem with this trade now is if buyers aren't successful at taking price higher, you know, they probably have the longer term participants have bigger stops than I do. They're going to be willing to let this come back down here. they're going to be willing to let it come back down to a point where they feel comfortable stepping back in. But they may just say, okay, well, let's just keep collecting sellers, collecting more sellers, let them be effective a little bit, bring price up, let them be effective, bringing price down, and then we'll get more sellers so that their stops are really going to launch price higher. So I don't know, but I have to look at what the buyers aren't doing, right? Especially after this print, I have to look at what they're not doing right now and say, why wouldn't they be pressing? I mean, I see the sellers coming in, but that just means that they're likely stops up here. If they're not going to start pressing now, it means that they're going to find another place. So that place may be VPOC. I don't know. But I have to ask the question, why? Why aren't they pressing? Why aren't they getting back up to 39? And this is clearly a reason. This activity at the bid, they were being held, but they had some advantage. 38.50, 38.75. All they had to do was push a little bit more, and with all this activity, this initiative selling, they likely would have stopped them out. They had them. Why would they let it go? Looking, there it is. There's a tag, 39 again. That's what I was expecting. IB is 39.75. Now I don't need to be stupid about this. I can protect this, this break even plus the contract. But given the way that this is auctioning, unless I see more volume coming in around 39.50, and that was pretty weenie at 39.25, strength coming back in the bid, this could certainly come all the way back down here and even back down to VPOC. So my premise in all this is, man, buyers are there. They have the sellers trapped if they want them trapped. Why wouldn't they press their advantage? And relative to this question about when does the candle start, when does a new candle start to print, this is a 6-4 chart. So what that means, from the beginning of a candle, it's going to probe 6 prices, and once it's probed 6 prices, it needs to pull back 4, and then it'll start a new candle. That's what creates a new candle. All right, here we go. I want to see volume. I want to see 39.75 stay a low volume area. But I'm up on the trade, right? If I close this trade right now, weakness at the bid, strength at the offer, yeah, I'm going to do that. So I could have gotten another $200 out of this if I would have let this go a little bit. But again, trading what I see. So now I have another trade. I've secured a little bit more profit. I'm out of the trade. If this, I see weakness here, strength here, and my logic here is, I don't care now if buyers take this through. Let them take it through. That was my trade anyway. So the way I look at this is, I got a bonus, $87.50 minus commission. That was just a bonus for me. Could have been another $200 if I would have held that trade, but it's just a bonus. Getting closer to my target for the day. So one of two things happen from up here. Either buyers are going to pound this through, and we're going to see the scenario that I talked about, that I'm looking for, set up, which gives me another trade, or sellers are really going to hold and take this back down, and I would have relinquished some profit. Does that make sense? So why not take my profit up here, right? Great. This is perfect. So what if I got out of this trade and I missed these 4 ticks? So what? Oh, I didn't set my volume profile correctly. That's not printing. DB will have to take a look at that. That's not giving me a profile above that level. I do have a low volume area at 39.75, however, and volume is growing at 40 and a quarter. I don't know why that's not going. Look at all the selling coming in here. Remember what we're looking for, right? Based on previous days, is a test up to 41. I want to see a pullback back down to 40 for a potential long. Press F5 and try again. There it is. Thank you. Thanks, Kev. Yep. So F5 cleared that. Thank you. So you see a high volume area here at 40. There's 41. Perfect touch. Let's see this. That went right through. All right. Well, we got a low volume area right here at 39.75, right where the top of IB is. 40. I want to look for a trade around 40 and a quarter. Weakness there. Now, I'm going to have to take a little bit of heat on this. I want it in down here. Oh, don't want that. So now what I do is I just start looking here. We have a high. Last high was at 41.50, 41.25. If we get through that, I really don't see any reason why this won't come up and test. You can see a little bit of low volume area right around here at 40.75, 41. But I don't see why we won't get to 43 and then possibly test that 44.50, 45 level. Verify what my profile looks like. Got a low volume area here at 41.75. Now, weakness, strength. I could choose to take off another one. Or let it go. I haven't looked at oil for a little bit. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Where did I tell you I wanted to short on oil? What was the number I gave you for oil? 32? I never got back up there. Yeah, that's right. All right, look at this number here. 1362 by 2911. This is likely to pull back a little bit, but that's not a finished auction. When I look at the profile here, that's not finished either. No taper at the end here. So here's how I read this now. I'm looking for price to bounce off of 41.75, 42 and move higher. If it starts coming through there, I may have to take that all the way back down to 40 quarter. So if I want to, if it gets through 41.75, I can take another one off. Otherwise, I'm looking for a bounce off of 41.75, which it just did, and looking for it to begin to test higher from there. Make sense? Question, the initial bid strength with around 875 contracts forced you to manage your risk? Yes, then the print changed and buyers began to come in that caused you to change your mind. Yes, so a couple of things with that. 4250, we have somewhat of a finished auction. I am going to okay, I'm going to take a little bit off there. I'm going to secure a little bit more profit. Got real big weakness here, more strength coming in at the bid. So what happened down here with this trade, I was originally long, right? I took one off because of all the strength coming back into the bid. But I held my other contract right below VPOC. And what I just said in my own mind was, look, I'm willing to take that 3 ticks or that point and a quarter on that trade. Or actually, I think I was at 36.75. I'm willing to take the additional 1, 2, 3 ticks with the second contract. Because if I start getting strength back down into this area, 37 even, strength back down at the offer, I very well may see price come back down to 36. Now, I also know the psychology of this is once I start doing the, okay, well, VPOC is here, and it could stop at VPOC and turn around, so I'll move my stop back here. So what happens is it comes down to VPOC, and I see more strength coming in at the offer, and I go, well, maybe one tick through VPOC. Oh, here's the high of yesterday, so I'll put it back here. I'll put it at 35.75. And now, instead of taking 3 ticks on that trade, I am at my stop is almost at 2 points. I just know that once I start doing that, the conversation in my head is going to favor me moving my stops. So I'm looking for 44.50 up to 45. You know, this isn't the greatest trade in the world. I'm not making the most amount of money. I could have scaled in here to make a little bit more, but you know, I'm okay. So I look at the profile here. I still see 41.75 here. So possible add at 42 if it gets down there. There's 44. And the other thing I can just keep doing is just put my on close. And once I get close enough and I see that, I can just say, you know, that's enough and close when I want. I can continue to, you know, secure profit here. But there's nothing wrong with taking a trade and taking your profit. 42.75 is right here. That would be almost a point. I would keep a point and a half on this for a potential higher, but I am expecting to start to see sellers up around 44.50, 45. So now I'm at 400 on the day. My target is 500, and if I would have taken that right where I saw the weakness and the strength, I'd have been in good shape. I'd have had another 37.50. I'd be about $60 away from my target. Well, maybe a little bit more with paying for the contracts. So does all that make sense, what I'm doing, and why I waited for the trade? Why I keep going, if this happens, then this, right? I set up a scenario in if-then that said, if buyers take it above this level, then I'll look to get in on weakness back around 37.25. Remember when I said that? And then I said my best trade, however, is price coming through IB high, leaving a low volume area at IB high right there at 39.75, and then taking that long on a retest back to 40.25, 40.50 it came down to. Boom. That's where I got in long. Thank you. Right. I had my plan and I executed it. I watched the auction throughout the day. I said I want to get to 500 for the day. That was my goal. If I got to, right, my goal for the day is 500. And I know that if I can get to 500 every day, I'm going to be in good shape. And if I manage my risks, so if I manage my downside so my risks aren't too bad, and I wait for buyers and sellers to tell me what it is they're trying to do, and then find that higher probability trade, at least trade where I can, like up against the low volume area like this, where I know that if it comes back down to 39, I'm out. I'm done. So this trade is 40 and a quarter down, a point and a quarter on my stop, but my profit potential is 44.50 to 45. So I'm looking at a 5 to 6 point trade versus a 1.25 point stop. That is a great risk reward. And so a lot of times, for me, it makes sense to manage my risk. And if this thing goes up to 1980 on the rest of the day, I don't care. I'll look for another trade to see if I can get in somewhere, but I don't really care. What I care about is this. I have a business plan that says, dude, you need to make at least 500 every day. Okay, if you make, I'll make sure you get your announcement, DB. I need to make at least 500 every day. If I make 500 every day, if I make 400, say I average 400 every day, 5 days a week. Let's say I only do 4 days a week. Let's say I only do that 4 days a week, $400. That's $1,600 in a week. If I do that for 4 weeks, I'm looking at $6,400 for the month. That's it's not a bad profit. Now, would it be great to be at 12,000, 15,000? Yes. But then I have to understand that given, especially now in August, what the ES might do in terms of range, I need to be trading with more contracts. And if I'm trading with more contracts, my risk to my downside is greater. I need to manage that risk well. And the only difference today between making $400 and $800 was instead of trading with 2 and 3 contracts, trading with 5 and 6 contracts. Better than your job at McDonald's and my New York cab driver job. But if my goal is $200 for the day, and I want you to understand this, it's okay to have a goal of $200 a day. I don't believe in trading with the market's money, but I do believe in building confidence. And the way you build confidence is to, do what we're doing here, manage your risk appropriately so you don't get knocked out of the game, and build up your account. And you don't build up your account to take more risk, but when you have more capital, you can add another contract. You still need to manage your risk, however. And as long as you keep doing this method and you're managing your risk and you're taking the opportunities where the market gives you, so what if it takes you 2 trades or 4 trades a day? I mean, it's really nice and you know, kind of sexy to see somebody take a 10-point trade with 10 contracts and you go, wow, that was $5,000. That's amazing. Most people can't do that. Take a 10 contract trade and it comes against you two points and you're down $1,000. If that's not a big deal for you, then great. You have the ability to trade at that level. Most people, however, don't. So, if the market pulls back to 42.50, would I go long? 42.75, 43 is a possible long right there. You can see the activity coming in at the bid. Here's the only issue. Here's the only issue. My context for today was a target of what today? What was my target for the day? I'm sorry, not in terms of price, but in terms of what was my target price for ES? Where was I looking at sellers stepping in? 44.50 to 45, right? I said that from when we started doing the trade plan today. Now, this may be a great trade off of 42.75 long. However, I'm seeing weakness again here at the bid, and we've already hit. I mean, I don't think at the beginning of the day I could, and it may go higher, but this is where I expected to see sellers, and what are we seeing? So, and if I would have held this trade back up to 44.50, that would have been a difference of just another 50. I'd been only about 40 bucks away from my goal for the day if I would have held it. But so what? I made the decision. I don't really care. You guys get what I'm saying, right? And you guys get why I picked 44.50, 45? Right? I mean, to me, this is fun. This makes trading fun. You know, I can see this profile. I can see volume growing. So the other thing I can tell you is if it closes above 44.50, 45 today, if it closes above that level, guess where my range is tomorrow? 57.75, 56, let's say 57, down to 45. What am I going to expect? I'm going to expect that we're going to start to see volume build around 53. We'll see a test to 53. And I would expect to see volume start building out at 53. If we reject off of 53 and start moving lower, this may be at risk, 45. But if we close above 45, I can tell you right now, if we close above 45 and we open above 45, 44.50 tomorrow, I'll tell you right now that my trade plan is going to call for, you know, depending upon today's volume profile, my trade plan is going to call for a long here in this area. All right, I'm going to put this aside and we're going to talk about building charts. People are having issues with my templates. I don't want people to have issues with the templates. So what's important is that you build the chart yourself. So I want to be real clear. We called that 44.50, 45 level before the market even opened.
Mark, can I just make
this
announcement?
Go ahead.
It has to do with what you're talking about. Okay, so it's come to my attention that obviously some people are having difficulties with the templates. One of the people in the room has figured out exactly what the problem is, and that is that the templates were created using IQ feed, which allows you, when you're not pulling up a chart during market hours to pull up a significant amount of historical tick data. So I believe you can pull up 120 days or maybe even more than that, as long as it's not during regular market hours. So if you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and load your charts before the ES opens or the night before, you can load this tremendous amount of data. However, if you try and do that with another data feed like CQG, which only allows you to pull 2 weeks of tick data, then you're going to run into a major problem. So what's happening is the computers are spooling up and trying to get information, but they can't. The data feed is cut off, either by time of day because they are an IQ feed user, or by the fact that they're not an IQ feed user. So I'm going to put a note on the website where the templates are about this, but I don't expect it to totally be resolved. But the point being that if they're loaded at the right amount of time or at the right time of day with the right data feed, they should work fine. If not, you're going to need to remove those templates because we're having major problems with people's computers just imploding from loss of resources. I did ask Mark to go through the process of creating these charts step by step, and we'll try and even get at some point screen captures of the parameters so that you can reproduce them yourself within the confines of what your data allows. So I apologize for the problem. We certainly didn't expect that, but if you are having those issues, I can help you get to a point where you can remove the templates, and or if you know how to navigate through the NinjaTrader 7 folders, you can just remove those templates right out. Anyway, I'll let Mark take back over, but I just wanted to explain what the situation is, and the very simple solution is to just remove the templates if you're having that problem, so that you're not pulling up those charts automatically when you launch Ninja.
Thanks, DB. Sorry if I crashed anybody's computer. I didn't realize that would happen, but thank you very much. That makes a lot of sense. What I'll do instead of just taking a screen capture of my attributes is I'll do a couple of videos on building these charts. Yeah, thank you very much. So I'll do a couple of videos on building the charts. But basically, I don't need to show this whole thing. It doesn't really matter. Go to File, New, Chart, and I'm going to bring up the ES 914, New. I want a 6.4 chart. If you don't have IQ feed, then you need to make this 2. You need to make that number 2. If you have direct IQ feed, you can leave it at 1. And then put in the number of days you want to go back. So with this, let's just build, I'm going to do 10 days back. And my default right now is it doesn't really matter because I'm going to change it. You can put anything in your default because we're going to go through and just change it anyway. So okay, whatever your default is. Here's mine. It's loading data. All right, so it says please add OFA Ninja indicator. So the first thing that I need to do is do the Ninja indicator, new. I'm going to go 3. I'm going to make that 2, 3, and okay. So I can at least start getting data. All right. So once I have that, I can just start making some changes. This is going to keep populating as I go. I'm going to get rid of a few of these things. Get rid of that. That. I can keep the hit apply. I need to make this a lot smaller. Hit apply. Okay, now that I have that, I want to do some things with this chart first. So one of the things I want to do, and you all know you can toggle from structure to, one of the first things I want to do is I like to change the colors. So I'm going to go into properties of the chart, and I'm going to make this white. I'll make this a little bit darker, doesn't really matter. I'm going to change my background then to black. And just so you know, one of the things about black is it's much easier on your eyes. If you find at the end of the day your eyes are really tired, one of the things could be if you're using a white screen, that can make your eyes very tired for the day. Plot horizontal grid lines, doesn't really matter. So I'm going to apply that, and I have my basic chart. I hate the pointer. I like crosshairs. So now that I have my basic 6-4 chart, I am going to go ahead and add some. I'm going to add this, new, and I'm going to change this to buying momentum. I make, like, for me, on black, I make a lime green. Selling momentum, just the standard red. I leave for momentum, I just leave the default right now. Okay? Apply. So I have my momentum dots. Next thing we can do is add the volume cluster analysis. New. Cluster concentration you can leave as 3. You can leave the responsive initiating spread for this 6-4 chart. I change this to custom. Okay, and this is a preference thing. I say for show secondary levels, yes. Additional levels, false. Okay, and now I have my clusters. And now I want to add my VPA. New. And then I get to change my colors. Gray doesn't work against black, so I make the volume profile white or yellow, something that shows up bright or brighter. So we'll do yellow. And then you can make your value area blue. Dodger blue comes out pretty well. I personally make these magenta. VWAP can be white. VPOC, I'm just a little bit of a particular about that it's not yellow, it's gold. Keep it at 2. Apply. Okay. And now I have what you see on my 6-4 chart. This is it. That's it. That's my 6-4 chart right there. And if I want to build a volume profile, all I need to do is go to the beginning of the day, click this right there, take it from here, and go right to the end. And now I can see my volume profile. We're getting a lot of volume up here at 4350. If I want to just collect the data from this swing once it broke through, see, look at that perfect trade right there. Low volume area. These are the trades I love. IB is set, price comes through, leaves a low volume area, take a long on a retest. And like I said, when I got into that trade, I said I may have to take a little bit of heat because I was looking for price to potentially come down to 40 and 39.75. But it worked really, really well. Let me just see. May want my custom colors for the bid ask. Oh, body wick. Okay, so we go back into that. Go into Ninja. We'll go into my colors. Body down. Red, body up. Chartreuse. I mean, I think this is actually pretty Pretty standard. Just let's see. Oh, right here. Sorry, color codes. These. Yep. All right. Thank you. Got it. So my custom codes for the strong and weak is red for strong bid, blue. I believe that's like a close to a Dodger blue. I like that color. Positive bid, I have pink, a little less than red. Strong ask is green, and then positive ask, I'm usually making a lighter green, like that. So those are my colors for the custom strength and weakness. I have not been trading this with exhaustion. If they were in my templates, then I apologize for that. What you've seen over the last week is me not using exhaustion at all. That would be for another time. So scratch the templates and make these, I'm telling you to make these yourself. So that's the first one. So the next one, file. One of the things that you're going to need to do, if you want to go back more than, the previous contract date, is, for 9/14, is you're going to have to go into Instrument Manager, and you can type in ES. Hang on a second. Okay, ES, go to ES, but then instead of the 9/14 expiry, do this pound, 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 pound. It's the continuous contract, and bring that over. I already have it over. Bring that over. So if you want to cross contracts, and this is particularly important as we enter into a new contract, and so DB's right. He's right. It may be limited by data provider. So if your data provider does not allow for a continuous contract, then this won't work for you. But if you want to go back to previous contract dates, then you're going to need this. And so, for example, if I want to do, my next one would be a 30/15. So I'm going to look for, now if this doesn't work, your continuous contract doesn't work, you're going to have to go to ES 9/14. That will work. Okay, new. I'm going to make this 30/15. Again, if you don't have IQ feed, you need to change this to 2. Days to load, 90. And I'm just, again, whatever your default is, I'm going to use it just because I'm going to build this. So that's going to take a couple of minutes to build. See price coming back up to, we're breaking a little bit higher. Looks like it's going to break higher yet. VPOC has shifted up to 43.50. That strongly says acceptance. And now we might see prices go a little bit higher. Okay. All right, it's almost done. Almost done painting. Okay, again, this may be limited, and DB's right, because of the time of day, this may not load fully. Okay, well, I'll have to build these videos at night then. On the daily, would you use the swing volume profile analysis from 852 or 915? $9.15. Right there. So if I wanted to see the profile just for that swing, but thanks, DB. You're right. This may not work today, and it looks like it's not. So here's what I'll do today: is I will do all this as videos tonight. Is there a way to set the VPA so it automatically extends throughout the session? Yes. And the way that you do that is, for example, where is my session? Here's my session right here. This is a 12.6. You can make this 6.4, whatever you want. But if I get rid of this, so if I want a session just for today, I go here, and I bring it right up to the current bar, and that will continue on. That'll make sure that every new bar, it continues to paint the profile. So I will build videos tonight. All right, I'll build. I can't even say it. I will build videos tonight. There we go, on how to build each one of these charts. Yep. All right, so we've been at it a little over 3 hours again. I hope that this session this morning has been helpful. You know, if I could make any point today, it's not only do you want to identify areas that you want to trade, but identify areas you don't want to trade. Like this morning when I said if price came into that low volume area from the overnight, I don't want to trade in that area. Identify the levels you don't want to trade. And then as the auction progresses through the day, keep building your if-then scenarios. So for example, where's my chart? You know, I built these if-then scenarios that said, you know, while I was dinking around down here, I said, sorry, I have no trade. We saw this print up here. That's pretty strong sentiment by buyers, likely to come back up. But before that, I said, you know, due to all this activity, you know, weakness up here, if we started seeing strength back at the offer above 37.50, then I would look to take a long, you know, 37, right in this area if we got weak. So that's why I took this initial long. We started getting some strength back into the bid, which is why I took one off here. But this was a trade that I was able to, you know, create an if-then scenario for, with the caveat that my best trade scenario was once it broke through IB and then going long on a retest up to 44.50 to 45. That was my best trade scenario. So by doing that and waiting and being patient, you can really, you know, look towards your objective and be objective and say, look, if this happens, if it comes down through here, and just keep repeating yourself, I don't know what will happen. I don't know what will happen. I don't know. I can only read what's in the print, and if the print starts showing strength against me, I have to honor that. I have to honor that. The trades could still work, but I have to honor that. Even though I had, like in this scenario, this area right here, that thing right there told me that there was a high probability that price was coming back up. All this activity at the offer, buyers weren't done there. So this was likely coming back up. So when I managed my risk, my thinking was, you know, it could come back down to VPOC, it could come back down here. But if I manage my risk and I take a tick or 2 or 3 ticks, I still see this as a target area. That there's a high probability price is coming back to 39 at some point. This is, to me, this was not a finished auction. So probably coming back to at least touch this. So if I take a small loss here, because it still could come way down, it could come all the way back down to 36, 36.50 even. But if I get back in down here where these other areas make some sense to get into, if it shows weakness at the bid, you know, if I get in at 36.25, now I'm looking at a almost 3-point trade. So is it worth me getting out, taking a small loss for a 3-point trade? Because again, I know the stupid psychology. If I'm in this trade, the further price comes against me, the more willing as a human being I am to let it go without discipline. I'm more willing to say, well, I'll give it a little room, I'll give it a little room, I'll give it a little room. And before I know it, I'm 200 down, I'm 300 down, and now I got to make 800 on the day. Oh, when I bring the property screen into the recorder, can I set them in the middle? That way we can see it being loaded? Sure. Yep. All right, so we're going to have another session next week, and we're going to do the same thing. Does that sound good? Everybody having fun trading this way? Oh, it's interesting, Ben. Interesting thought. Run a training room 1 day a week. Good. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
Mark, thanks again for the day. We really appreciate it. As always, we know your time's valuable. Love that you're willing to come back in and let people ask questions. We'll see you on the other side. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Take care.